Danny, it happened. We
Yep.
had a watch party at Caddies in Bethesda. We were together with dozens of our listeners. We had ourselves a day, didn't we?
That was just incredible. Incredible. It's fascinating to watch it in a group like that. And thanks to the folks at Caddies for having us. That was a blast. That was so much fun to hang out with so many listeners. And everyone was, like-minded, eating their wings and, watching the Cap skate. Didn't play very well, but that's secondary to this astounding achievement. It was kind of cool. I think Ovi had 6 shifts in the first period, right? Which, the shorter shifts, I think 40 seconds on average, give or take. A little bit unusual for him. They were kind of sleepwalking through that first period. But there was this interesting phenomenon. I don't know if you caught this. As everybody's watching the game, eating their wings, having conversation, he would take the ice. Somebody in every group would kind of realize it. And then sort of the din, all the voices would kind of start to quiet, and everyone was glued to the screen. And they'd watch it, and if he toured, or when he didn't score, he would kind of go back to normal. Then the second period, okay, now there's a power play. So now, hey, he's on the ice, he's over the boards. Everybody's kind of watching with anticipation, getting their phones ready. And sure enough, you see that play develop in slow motion. The shot, perfect. It's him. Like it was the way you'd want it to happen pretty much, right? Corrals an elite pass from Tom Wilson. A little bit behind him, doesn't matter. The greatest shot that's ever shot in the NHL, the greatest goal scorer of all time, hit a perfect one, and the place went crazy. It was
Patented
awesome.
Ovechkin office power play.
Perfect.
You can't do it any better. That's what the statue's going to be. Him gathering that puck, or the follow through, or him getting ready with his stick in the air to, on a one-timer, which this one wasn't necessarily. He corralled it and wristed it home. But we should have known, man.
Yeah.
If you look at sports history for events like this, there's always some type of symmetry, it feels like. Yesterday was April 6th. On April 6th, 1980, Gordie Howe scored his 801st and final career goal in the NHL. On April 6th, 2004, the Capitals won the draft lottery that resulted in drafting Alex Ovechkin. The exact date yesterday, 21 years earlier. And then, April 6th, 25, Ovi becomes the all-time goals record holder. The other crazy stat I've seen floating around was that yesterday was game 1,487 for Ovi. That's how many games Wayne Gretzky played in his career to score 894 goals. 1,487 games, 894 goals. Ovi, 1,487 games now, 895 goals. And to that I say, sports. It's the best.
Isn't that incredible?
Sports, man.
And that includes, by the way, for Gretzky, a 92-goal season, an 87-goal season. Just times were different. He had these were years where he had 200-plus points. Just nobody was even close in that regard. I mean, just to quantify this thing, he scored 50 goals a year for 15 years. Great career. You're not even sniffing this. You're not close. Yeah, that was awesome. Great job. That's adorable. Get your Hall of Fame plaque a few years after you're done.
Which nobody's done. Like, you say it like, if you just did this thing that no one can do.
If you did this impossible feat, which the game doesn't allow for, you're not even close to this number. It's so staggering.
I think what's most amazing about this record falling, which was long thought to be unachievable, not unlike Cal Ripken Jr. surpassing Lou Gehrig, or I'm quite sure that the home run record for Maris and Mantle with Ruth originally, and then those guys until Bonds hit it. Just like now, sitting at 73, they are viewed as unbreakable, right? And I think the reason why is that Father Time is undefeated. And eventually, in its bout with Alex Ovechkin, Father Time's going to win. But it ain't right now.
Nope.
Ovi is delivering the blows later and deeper into the fight than just about anybody has. Gretzky, for all of his exploits, the greatest player of all time, 9 goals at 39 years old, man. Alex Ovechkin, having missed 16 games with a broken bone in his leg, would be on his way right now to possibly 60 this season. He's sitting in the mid-40s. He would be at 50 pretty easily if not for that injury this year as a near 40-year-old. And I think that's the thing that's getting a little bit lost in the celebration of the career is I think this year is almost as or more amazing than the career accomplishment of Alex Ovechkin.
I think you're dead right about that, by the way. Because we saw, again, the first half of last season, you kind of went, quietly in places you don't really want to talk about in public. Okay, maybe this is how it has to happen. You limp along, you get 20. No shame in it, by the way. You know what I mean? If you're going to break a record like this, the last few years may not be as pretty as some of the early ones in your prime. I'm fine with it, by the way. A team on the fringe of playoff contention, a couple veterans playing out the string, just enough to set him up from his office a couple times. Maybe have a couple leads, a couple empty net goals to get him going, but let's do 20 a year. Maybe let's do 3 more seasons. You have to extend him. We'll see what happens. And then, of course, he caught fire in the second half last year. And it's been like that ever since without doing the stuff that he used to have to do to go get those goals. He's just, you could see if you have the ISO cam on him, on that record setter, he's letting everybody else drive the net, do the dirty work, just sort of gliding around, like Lionel Messi now. If that's the best comp I can come up with in terms of soccer, he's not sprinting around like everybody else does. He just sort of walks and lays in wait. And that's what Ovechkin's doing. Lets someone else drive the net, slides to his spot, receives that pass, and the shot's still the shot, man. And he's getting them grimy. He's still getting them with that elite shot, but 42 goals with a dozen plus fewer games than everybody else. He's among the league leaders. It's stupid.
He can't stop scoring.
Yeah.
5 straight games with a goal right now. 6 in his last 5, 7 in his last 7, 8 in his last 9, 9 in his last 11. He is on one of the great heaters of his career right now, this moment, as he had all the pressure of the record, all of the attention, all of the media, everything he's been dealing with, and he's as hot as he's ever been. And this will be the year where he scores at the greatest rate of his career in terms of goals per minute on ice, goals per game. This is the best that it's been for a guy who's the greatest goal scorer of all time. It just doesn't make any sense. Let's go through some of the calls from yesterday. I'm a sucker for big calls on broadcasts with history on the line. So why don't we start with Monumental Sports, Joe B. and Locker. Couple of things to pay attention to here. Number one, Locker's back.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't sure if he was even going to be around when this record broke because he had open heart surgery several weeks back. Craig Laughlin fought, scratched, clawed, got back, and was in the booth for this, number one. Number two, we weren't sure if Monumental would be on the call because the nationally televised games at the end of their schedule were bountiful. The networks had exclusivity. They struck a deal. We'll have to ask Ted Leonsis about this when he joins us at 4 to be able to call this game, and this was several days out. But it wasn't like they were going to get all the games. So the stars aligned perfectly for Joe B. and Locker, who were on the call of Ovi's first career goal ever, just about every single goal since. The guys that have been here for all 20 years chronicling his career to be on the mic. And then you had Joe B., who's amazing with a perfect call. And you had Locker, who's the best at what he does. With each of these big moments, by the way, allowing the crowd, the moment, the visuals of TV, the mobbing of his teammates to tell the story. He sits out for 15, 18 seconds before he offers that patented voice, that iconic Laughlin take. He sits there and waits and lets you soak up the moment. But this was the call locally on Monumental Sports yesterday.
Send in Wilson on the flank. Cross ice. Ovechkin fires. Score! The chasing days are done. Alex Ovechkin is the greatest goal scorer in the history of the NHL.
By the way, how about the response on Long Island?
Amazing.
Yesterday from the visiting crowd, all of those blue sweaters standing up, and there were a million.
There's a ton of Caps fans, yeah.
Cakes made the trip. I know media-wise, we had, Chris Russell was up there and JP Finley. I saw all over our social stuff yesterday, and they were working. We were well represented, but, from a fan standpoint, thousands of Caps fans made that trip. I had no fewer than 7 or 8 buddies texting me while they're getting on the flight or driving up their road tripping yesterday. I'd imagine it was 30, 40% Caps fans.
At least. You saw them sprinkled throughout, but it was, loud enough. And I guess, again, good for the New England. No, I'm talking New England, for the Long Islander fans to sort of get that. It was bigger than anything else. right? Just the recognition of it. It sounded like a wind tunnel, and people were like pounding on the door to get in. It was like this jet engine that went off, this roar, and the ovation was thunderous. It was continuous. Then when it would die down, there was another moment of like an Ovechkin wave, or why should the Capitals go? I know it wasn't Wes Johnson, but when the announcement happens again, it's boom. Then the ceremony happens, and they get up again. It was spectacular.
I still would have preferentially, in a perfect world, loved to have seen it happen at home, but I didn't not want him to score, and it was perfect. We were at the watch party. Power play starts. It's been a sluggish game. You just kind of have a feeling like, because it's Ovi, it's the power play, he's going to get an opportunity. And as you said, everybody's locked in. People are standing. And he scores. And all the folks that we talked to that had tickets to this coming Thursday against Carolina that said, let's hope he doesn't score today so I can see it. They were clapping. They were hugging.
Yeah.
They were emotional. It's not like anybody was rooting against it. Would it have been perfect at home? Sure. Yesterday was pretty special, too, with the traveling NHL circus of sorts where down on the ice, they're bringing Gretzky down and they're rolling out the carpet mid-game with 12 minutes left in the second period, and they're doing what was a really touching, brilliant celebration.
That was very good.
Of Alex Ovechkin. Give the NHL a lot of credit, and Gary Bettman. I thought they rolled out the red carpet, literally and figuratively, and did a nice job. The Capitals always crush whatever this is, like special things for the organization. You knew they were going to do it in a really awesome way, and they certainly are just getting started, because I'd imagine there's going to be a hell of a party on Thursday night at Capital One Arena.
So, yeah.
When the conquering hero comes home. We forget Friday night this whole thing started, so we were on air live at City Tap House before the game, and we're joking all day long. Maybe he gets a hat trick, or maybe he gets a couple and ties it up.
And he damn near did, man.
The likeliness of that happening was like 0%, right? He scored 2 goals. Greatest environment I've ever been in as a sports fan. Not shtick. I can further explain if you need me to. But he had another 7 or 8 opportunities, and even at the end of the game in the third period,
turned down open net stuff.
3 or 4 near, more often than not, that's a goal type opportunities to get a hat trick and break the whole thing. And then with the empty net, they could have sent him out there. He elected not to go out and break it on an empty net, but he almost ended the thing on Friday night at home.
I mean, I was saying this to some folks there before the game started, talking about that Caddies on Sunday. Do you think he does it? And I actually said no. I don't mean ever. I mean, today, I go, and now after Friday, I go, it now feels like a show. Like it feels like a scripted program where this impossible thing happens, and you can now throw out any sort of, I don't know, the ups and downs and undulations. And it feels like the TV writers got together and go, this is how the show is going to go. There's a lot of backdrop to this Carolina game. There's extra punchiness, extra chippiness. So it's going to be a home environment, and this is where it's going to end up happening. But of course, it ended up being just a storybook on the road. And I was really pleased to see that, honestly. I mean, for me, it was less about like what we got and about what he got. I was worried that like if there's a bunch of Islander fans who are like, can't put anything aside or just like booing him or whatever, or like weren't into it and the ovation wasn't that good.
I was never concerned about that.
So I was, and that was my thing, is I want him to make sure that I want the flowers to be there, and they were. So to me, it works out. I didn't care about whether it's home or away.
1, hockey fans are different. There is a respect and a reverence in the big moment. 2, I don't think there's a sport where that would happen. Maybe internationally, something I don't know about. But when it's time to just have some decorum and some respect generally, that's what sports are all about. That's why we play them, to learn those lessons. And you saw it, honestly, every step of the way when he's scoring against teams on the road for big milestones, 500, 600, 700, 800, whatever it was. They always kind of rose to the occasion. See, I thought that would certainly be the case. But to me, I just thought it would be more special for him and his family and for the organization and for the fans. Big part of this thing, let's face it, nearly 20,000 of them strong in red, if it happened at home. Was it perfect? Close to it. I mean, I don't know that I would change much yesterday. That was about as good as it gets. You realize he scored 18.6% of their goals since his debut as an organization? Think about that. Since the moment he debuted 20 years ago.
That's so stupid.
Alex Ovechkin has scored about 19%, 1/5 of the Capitals' goals. That is preposterous. This was John Walton's call, as heard yesterday, right here on the Capitals Radio Network.
So Carlson will make his way to the neutral ice, dropping it for Dylan Strome. He and Chikrin will team up and glide through center. Right side to Wilson, centered up. Ovechkin has it. He scores! He scores! Alex Ovechkin scores 895. There's a new goal-scoring champion, and his
Alexander Ovechkin. He has done it here on Long Island. His teammates love him. There is but one. Alexander the Great, the greatest to ever do it in National Hockey League history.
Come on. The beauty of this, there's a lot of ways you can go, I think, with any celebratory first thought on Ovechkin. For me, it's very simple. Every single one of them was scored as a Capital.
That's it.
Go back through the annals of the great goal scorers, Gretzky or anybody else, and they bounced around and they were a hired gun and they scored for a lot of teams. Not this guy. He signed a 13-year deal at $9.5 million per, back when it was considered insane for Ted Leonsis, who's joining us at 4:00 today, to give him that contract. And then he signed another 5-year deal for $47.5 million, 9.5 per. Oddly enough, in the league, 13 years later, same AAV, not a whole lot of growth, but the cap has since exploded thanks to the exploits of players like Ovechkin. But because he's spent now 21 years and 20 seasons, because of the work stoppage after he was drafted, in one organization, every one of them was for us. Every one of them was celebrated here. And there are thousands of people listening, Danny, that are just like me, who have been in the barn for hundreds of them, who have benefited emotionally and who have, as a fan, gotten a ton out of each of those highlight goals, whether it's from his back in Phoenix or off the sidewall around Roman Hammerlick, or scoring as he's sliding into the goal cage, or dangling through defenders like a coop through traffic, or the blast from The Office that became patented. The amount of joy he's given us over 20 years, no other player in the history of the town has. To me, that's what was so emotional about yesterday. He was ours on day one.
Yep.
He's ours today, and he's been ours every single day since. How many guys can you say that about in the history of DC sports?
Yeah, there's no adding it up, right? There's no cumulative total for, well, he was in, Philadelphia for this many, New York for this many, Detroit for this many. As you said, it's all here. Every one of them's here. And that's incredibly rare. I mean, in all sports. And it's not anything's malicious. It doesn't make an achievement lesser for other guys that have put together those kinds of numbers. But it just, I don't know, it just feels more significant. It's one of those, it makes it extra special, right? That every one of those, as you said, goal number 1 and goal 895, and everyone sandwiched in between for the bookends, Washington Capitals uniform, dude, rocking the red, for the exception of the occasional alternate jersey. But it was here. You know what I mean? That is that much more. There's nobody else that gets to share our thing. It's a league celebration. Everybody's happy for him. The NHL did a nice job, but everyone's got to look at us. You know what I mean? We're not going, yeah, there's 230 as a Minnesota North Star or whatever. No, there ain't. 895, all right here.
DC was the epicenter.
Yep.
The Caps were the whole
I love that
story. This was about Washington, D.C. and hockey in this town, which he has made a thing. Yes, they saved the Caps in the 70s, and thank you to those people who did. And yes, they got to a Stanley Cup when I was 9 years old back in the late 90s, and that made this town for a short time go puck crazy. But that was not sustainable and didn't lead to a packed house with everybody wearing the same thing at US Air Arena, or I guess they had just gotten over to the Capital One Arena shortly thereafter. Ovi did that. Ovi's the reason why when I was a kid and I couldn't find a sheet of ice, and the first time I ever skated was when something opened 40 minutes from my house in middle school for my buddy's birthday party. Now my kid's 4 years old wearing his jersey skating, and he's a year behind all the kids that started at 3 at the St. James. He's the reason for all of that.
That's what people don't understand. If you're my age and older, you want to be on ice skates, you either had to have somebody, a rich friend who belonged to one of the couple country clubs that had an ice rink. And I'm not joning. That's what it was. You went to Cabin John, Georgetown when it was cold enough, you could pay some money to skate outdoors, or go to Fort DuPont. There weren't ice rinks. There weren't hockey teams.
My intrigue with hockey was the ice because it was such a foreign concept.
Yeah.
These guys ice skating was like, I don't know, a fireman fighting a fire. It was this thing that no one else gets to do that they're really good at. When I was a little kid,
right?
Nobody had ice. King George County, we still have to drive probably to Fredericksburg, best I can tell you. But it was Central Park. They opened it up when I was in middle school, and I walked out there like a Rottweiler on a linoleum floor in middle school. Like, this is what Brendan Witt does? You know
and
what
he
I mean?
goes backwards. Yeah, good luck with that.
This is what Jeff Halpern and Calle Johansson are up to.
Yeah.
This is wild.
Well, with all due respect to Kelly Miller and Michael Pavanka and Don Beaupre, the dozens of guys that I watched in the 80s and 90s, it was fun. You know, you go to US Air Arena, whatever the hell the thing was called in Landover, Capitol Center. We had good games, good memories, a lot of heartbreak and some horrible things where you get gut punched and you leads and you lose them and whatever. But it was fun. It was fine. But it wasn't like this. Again, there are the same way there's a baseball team that your kid can play on that goes to other cities, the soccer, club stuff, all the things that were normal. Hockey's just as ubiquitous now because of him.